It's Paul. It's Matt. We're here to talk about American Gods.
Yes.
Season 1, Episode 2, The Secret of Spoons. Which, I always wondered, what is it about spoons?
Yeah.
But, they revealed it to me.
Yeah, the stuff that wasn't revealed in The Matrix.
Yeah, right. That's the secret.
There's more.
Then you
There's
get a cookie. Okay. Then you'll wonder if they were supposed to get the cookie or okay. No. So, quick synopsis. Probably won't be quick. We'll try it. We'll try a quick synopsis before we talk about the show. Okay. So we open with slaves on a slave ship.
That's true.
Coming to America. So similar to last week's Coming to America, we had the Vikings. The Norsemen coming to America.
Yes.
We have African slaves coming to America. And there is a very, very evocative speech, monologue from the African god Anansi, who in the show, in the book, is Mr. Nancy, is kind of his modern-day equivalent. He shows up, gives a speech,
inciting them to violence.
And
slaves.
And basically they immolate themselves. And then in the wreckage of the ship, Anansi, as the spider, arrives on the shores of America. So again, we're seeing how the gods have come to America. We'll talk about that again. It informs the entire episode, really, about race. And Shadow and Moon is black, and there's a racial component to the entire episode. So Shadow is being lynched, as we left off from the last episode.
Well, it did fall back down in that last episode.
Right, he did. But I mean, we see again that he's hanging in the beginning of this
last
one.
week, they say.
And so...
Oh, yeah, I guess they did show.
And he mentioned, he even says the word. Like, I was lynched.
I was lynched. Strange fruit, he called himself.
Yes, he did. And so he is saved. The show has not revealed how he's been saved yet. So we'll leave that for now. We maybe mentioned a little bit our theory on that last week, but whatever. He is saved by an unseen force. Mm-hmm. And he shows up in the hospital, and they're like, hey, were you shot at? Because if you were shot at, we're going to call the cops. He's like, no cops. They staple him up. He goes back to the American Motel. He has an American Motel shirt on at one point, which has a buffalo on it. Yeah. The buffalo of his dreams. Anyway, so he confronts Wednesday, like, hey, look, this guy, the technical boy, picked me up. He, made threats, basically, and Mr. Wednesday says, I know the guy, and don't take my lack of apparent anger for lack of actual anger. I have a plan, and we're going to get back at this guy.
Yeah, you have some more money, twice as much.
Yeah.
To stick around.
So he says, so how much more time do you need from the funeral? He's like, a day or so. And he's like, well, okay, when you're done, we're done. So we'll take off as soon as you're ready. So Shadow goes back to his old house. I don't know if he has to... Oh, first. Okay, so it's his first night as a free man in the motel. That's what it is. And so because remember, he promised himself, when I get my first day, I'm going to take I'm going to take a bath. And I'm going to sleep in the bed. So he takes he uses the little hotel shampoo, and he makes his first bath as a free man. Then he gets to sleep in a bed, and he has a dream about Laura, his wife, who has passed away. And he then goes to the house, and he's cleaning up stuff.
Yes,
he's
putting stuff
packing stuff away. Obviously, it looks like they're going to sell the house. Basically, is the idea. And there's the box of coroner's stuff that he keeps looking at and not wanting to see. Looking at, he finally opens it up.
because it's the stuff that she had on her.
Right.
Not the stuff in the house, but the stuff she actually had on her.
Had on her at the time of her death. There's a cell phone.
Strangely, no passcode on it.
No, I noticed that too. It's like swipe. Oh, huh.
It's like I'm not gonna. This stuff on my phone. Anybody can look.
Yeah, I'm having an affair. I'm sure no one will care if I. So yeah,
you can't tell who that is.
Easily gets into the phone, and sure enough, there's a picture.
Yes.
Of note.
Yes.
On that phone.
Yes.
Which basically is the fast way to say they were having an affair.
Yeah.
So he then has to like scrub the house down. I mean, he's doing it anyway because they're probably selling the house. But there's that extra layer of like, oh, there's the taint of corruption about this place. So I'm gonna scrub it down. Scrubs it down. As he's leaving, as the moving truck takes off, Mr. Wednesday joins him in front of the house. It's like, are we going to Chicago? And Wednesday says this kind of a cool little monologue where he's like, look, I want to tell you something. You're not going to like it. Please don't knock my teeth out when I say this. But, your wife, she's having an affair.
That he put a little more crudely.
He put it a little more crudely. We're going to keep this a little more family
she's
show.
Having an affair.
Yeah. And so, that's how she died. And you're only obligated to feel bad about that for so long. And Shadow's like, well, thanks for warning me, because he's still like, yeah, you're right. You said something that would normally cause me to punch you.
Thanks for the warning.
Right. So Shadow is still holding a torch for his dead wife. And so they take off for Chicago. They stop off to buy some a shopping list. So Wednesday
goes off to have a meeting. While Shadow is supposed to buy things.
He has a meeting with the gentleman with the flaming eyes. We see him walk by, and in his sunglasses, yes. He's got these. And that gentleman is a mythological creature, and duh, and will come in later. So we'll just leave that for now. But yes, he is meeting with other magical folks as he goes around the country. And that's what he's doing to go into Chicago. He's trying to get his army, his gang together to compete against the new gods. So he gives a shopping list to Shadow to go and acquire some items for their next visit to Chicago. While he's shopping in the shopping center, he is confronted on the shopping center's TVs by the goddess Media, one of the new gods. In the form of Lucille Ball, played by Gillian Anderson.
Yes.
X-Files. There's something X-Files-ish about this thing. Anyway. And also,
she was in Hannibal.
Boom. Little Brian Fuller callback.
That's right. He's like, dude.
Well done, sir. That's good. Lucille Ball basically is, he turns the TV off and it comes back on, and she pushes the screen out. I'm like, you know what? These old... They never gave me enough... there we go. So she talks to him, and basically she is one of the new gods. She talks about being worshipped, that people just ignore the people beside them so they can watch the screen. And like, what you're watching right now is your worshiping media. She's like, oh, yeah, they have stuff they can watch in their hands now when they're bored with what's on the screen. Her comment, her quote, time and attention... It's better than lamb's blood. I thought that was a pretty cool quote. Basically, the idea, again, of sacrifice. People are sacrificing their time and attention to her as the new goddess, Media. So she basically tries to offer, get Shadow to her side. Shadow's like, nah, not having it. I know you understand who you are, what you are at this point. He's still kind of freaked out by, what is this alternate reality? So he leaves that. This might be where we go to Bilquist. Somewhere in here, they cut to more Bilquist scenes.
Sure.
We have the guy caught in ecstasy in the void.
Oh yeah.
Which I assume is like after they're ingested.
Perhaps.
That's kind of where they're in this alternate reality, perhaps of.
We imagine. We speculate.
Yeah. So. She basically takes on, we see her
do a number
taking
of
sacrifices, men and women.
Yes. Equal opportunity.
And then we see her in a museum with what we assume is the likeness of her in statue form.
Right.
And there's a cool shot of her standing in front of it. And she's looking at these vestments that she used to wear, or maybe a priestess used to wear in her honor. Who knows? But she momentarily, like you see the form raise underneath the garment to kind of fill it out. And then,
yes.
So, I mean, I'm not sure all the symbolism behind that, but basically, I think the intent of that scene is to show this is an old god.
Yes.
Her remnants are in the museum. And all these old gods and new gods, but more of the old gods are trying to stay relevant, are trying to, they realize if they are forgotten, they perish, basically. And so they are trying to avoid being forgotten.
Right, yeah, we don't get the repeat of the worshipping that Joel Murray was doing in the last episode, but you have to imagine that everybody would come to worship her before being ingested.
Yes, it's a montage of ingestings. So we then cut back to Mr. Wednesday and Shadow. They talk a little bit on the road. There's some road. Oh, actually, there's a good quote on the road when they're traveling, and Wednesday tells them to stay off the highways.
Yes.
And then later, when Shadow tries to give him a cell phone, and he's like, "Nope. If you need me, just shout." Or send me a telegram.
Yes, he missed the telegrams. Oh, they were so great.
Yeah, they were great. They didn't code. It was really special. And I do like the quote that he brings up, which is the first message that was ever sent via telegram. Samuel Morse saying, "What hath God wrought?" And so it's that idea of he brought in the information age. So he brought in the worshiping of information, and what then eventually leads to Technical Boy and all these other things. So it is a form of worship. In this context. But I think there's another reason why he's getting rid of cell phones and staying off the highway, and that's because those are vehicles for the new gods. And so he doesn't want to be tracked by the new gods. Oh, I got my cell phone, they can track me. Or the highways, I think, are a version of worship to a form of new god deity. Anyway, so that's my thought on that. So they arrive in Chicago. We did not see them. They didn't stop by our place.
No.
Unfortunately.
No.
Damn it. But they go to a brownstone place, and they meet up with Cloris Leachman.
Yes.
Which was awesome. I wasn't sure she was alive. So it's good. I was glad to see her hanging out and being
Apparently
great.
she turned 80 during the production of that, of her work on the show. And so they got her a cake. That stipulated, I can't remember what it said, but it was very amusing. Look it up. An amusing cake. Something about you're 80 or something?
Well, food is actually very important in this scene that they're in, because the ritual of preparing a meal and for guests is kind of this coming together and accepting someone in your home. And although the food is apparently terrible, I do like the fact that, actually, we used to have servants. We, the gods, used to have servants who would feed us, and now we have to do our own things. But they have this meal. We meet Chernobog.
Yes.
Who is a Slavic god. Basically means black god. Again, maybe that little racial component we were talking about. But people would sacrifice to him by hitting people in the skull, basically, and killing people in his honor. So his adaptation to the States was to kind of go on the killing floors and kill cattle over and over and over again. And
very skillfully, because apparently fear into meat is just not good.
Yeah, the
you
adrenaline.
don't want to get that fear in the meat.
So he's a craftsman at killing people with a big hammer. And he then, Wednesday tries to recruit him, basically. Hey, we got this, we need you against the new gods. I don't think he says it that way, but that's what he's asking.
Right.
And he basically gets refused. And then, there's a game of checkers.
Yes.
That comes about. Black versus white. And, there's a wager. So the wager is if Shadow beats Chernobog at checkers, Chernobog will join the group and fight for Mr. Wednesday, basically. Or as Mr. Wednesday put it, I'm going to get my hammer, which is not Thor's hammer. Anyway, and then if Shadow loses, he kneels down and Chernobog gets to brain him, basically, with his hammer.
With his big metal heavy hammer.
His phallic symbol, of which that's the there's like race and phallic objects are kind of like the central objects of this particular episode. So Shadow loses.
Yes.
And we're left with the end of the episode is, oh, all right, well, in the morning I'm gonna hit you over the head.
Yes. Still nighttime.
So, hey, everybody enjoy. Credits. All right, so that is the down and dirty of the episode. What are some thoughts you had, Mr. Button?
Well, this is where, I'm still becoming used to the fact that the pace of the show is going to go slower than I would have expected.
Okay.
Because they're not even going to complete the book in the first season.
It doesn't appear that... Is that official? Because
yes.
It doesn't appear that way.
It is official.
Okay.
And they've said they don't know if they're being picked up. It's like, that would be the worst. Here's the first season, and that's really all you get. It doesn't complete the story.
Yeah. It was like the... whatever. Back in the day, there was the animated Lord of the Rings movie, which ends at the Two Towers. Because they were gonna make another movie,
no, not.
But then they just spent all the budget. This was way before that, yeah, or not before. But so they just spent all the budget on it. Never went back and made a second one. So there's like Lord of the Rings ends, 2/3 of the way through the story. So yeah, that would be weird here if American Gods just ends somewhere in the middle of the book. But.
Yeah. So that particular scene, knowing how it completes, it's like, okay, that's an interesting place to stop the show. After that part,
Well, also...
I feel like there's a beauty in it not being a cliffhanger. But at least the way that I interpret it anyway.
Well, it's hard to imagine... let's face it, if you just kept watching into next week's episodes, you see...
Right, you would see it.
You see that Shadow is actively doing stuff.
Yes. Yes, if you watch the scenes from next week.
He's not dead.
He's not dead, no.
Unless it's a flashback.
Yeah.
They resolve it. And that is... I suppose they could still do it like the book does it, but it looks like they're switching that up a little bit. So in the book, Chernobog wins.
Yes.
And then Shadow challenges him to a second match.
Right.
And Chernobog's like, what, I'll kill you twice? And Shadow's reasoning
is, you can still kill me.
Yeah, you might miss.
You would still have to go if I win.
Yeah. So,
you miss and have to do it again. Yeah.
Yeah. So this way you get two shots at me.
Yeah, right.
And so Chernobog agrees, and this time Shadow plays more unconventionally, wins, and so Chernobog agrees to go with him. But at the end of everything, Chernobog still gets to hit him in the head.
Yeah.
And so that's where it leaves off. Now, in this case, it seems like it was just a one. Maybe they'll start the next episode with "Let's play again," but I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be kind of yeah. We'll see. I like that part of the book. I like the whole, okay, you know what? Because to me, in the book, when he lost, he didn't seem as nearly distressed about it as he did. I don't know why. In the book, he didn't seem that distressed about it. Not that he, wanted to die or anything, but I feel like, I don't know.
Yeah, he was accepting...
Like, hey, that's what I agreed to,
Yeah.
So, I don't know. We'll see how... maybe I should reread the book. Maybe he was a lot more spooked about it. But he was just sort of like, want to go again?
I did like the fortune-telling scene, too, where Cloris Leachman does the fortune. She's like, I don't tell the good fortunes because I tell you what's true, and I don't lie to people to get their money. And so there's a couple of funny lines in there, but one of them is, he can tell that something's bad. Yeah. And he's like, what, is it that bad? And she says... your mother died of cancer. He's like, yeah. You will not die of cancer.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay then. Good. And we'll leave it at that. Yes. Anyway, so, she is foretelling perhaps some tragedy in Shadow's future.
Yes.
And so there is this, this racial component to this episode in particular. But so... In the opening scene with Orlando, not Orlando Bloom. Orlando Bloom shows up as Legolas. No. Okay. Anyway, so Anansi, Mr. Nancy, has this, as we were discussing, a very provocative monologue where he's basically telling all of the slaves on the ship that not only are they screwed, but generations are screwed.
Yes.
And
yeah, he takes on a number of different accents. One of them being South African.
yes, and he's obviously coming from a modern context.
Yes,
and so he's probably talking over their heads in some ways because they're like,
yes,
what, who, what? But he's also basically talking about Shadow's story in a way. I mean, he says when he says, "Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, a man got effed." And that's his story. So,
right.
And so it's that same idea. I mean, Shadow is basically getting effed, more or less.
I just looked at it as, just basically saying how blacks were effed.
Yes, but I think it equates to Shadow's story too, right? He's he's in jail. He finally gets out of jail. He's immediately accepts a deal that basically makes him again he's bonded to this guy and is almost a prisoner again. He's also in a world that seems like it's made out of European gods, and he's the and there's a scene even where Chernobog's like, "Oh yeah, you were my one black friend," oh. I did like the bit where Chernobog is talking in Slavic terms. He's like, "Oh, we didn't have skin color wasn't a problem, an issue, or we were everybody the same.
People,
so we found a way. We found a way through our hair color, and so he's like, there were the light hair versus the dark hair, and that now they're all gray, and so the shades have all changed anyway, and so they're all the same. Yeah.
Oh, he's talking about his brother.
Yeah, he's talking about his brother, who was lighter, who's kind of the god of light.
Interesting.
And so he was basically saying, when we didn't even have skin color to fight over, we found shades of our hair to fight over. We fighting over colors. He chooses the black pieces because he is the black god, and so when he's playing checkers,
when they conclude, he feels sorry because the first black friend he ever had.
Right. So Shadow is slowly coming to realization of his surroundings, maybe? I mean, he did that thing where when he accepts the deal, when he accepts the bet.
In the previous episode.
Or in this episode, when Chernobog's like, "Hey, I'll hit you over the head," and he's like, "You know what? I just saw a woman talking to me on the TV. Screw it. Fine. Right. Yes. Why not? Let's do this." That's true. And so he is starting to accept the surroundings. I think he's going to learn a little bit more too when he talks to the sisters.
Yes.
Chernobog, Zariah, and there's the sister that's, what is she, sick? And they're like, we don't talk about it so much. But we're going to find out they are also mythological creatures.
I want to reread that episode, or that part of it, because...
The Chicago part? Or?
The Chicago part, yeah, because it seemed less clear to me that, Wednesday was giving him sort of sanctions to make his own mind up, but it seemed less clear to me. Yeah, I don't know. I just want to reread it.
Okay. What do you intend to see that what are you trying to validate? Right.
Just felt different how he decided to do it.
Okay. It felt a little more like he felt required to do it, maybe in the book, as opposed to this is up to you.
No, I think it was more in terms of he could tell that he wasn't going to do it, and he also knew that I could perhaps play him to do it. I don't feel like he asked him the question, do you really need this guy? I think he knew that he needed the guy.
Right. That's what you're saying.
So,
he took the responsibility on himself.
Right, that's what I feel like happened.
Okay.
And, it's not bad to have that. That's one bad thing about when you don't have voiceover in the book, you're reading it or whatever, you have to read people's minds, but they have to say it, so,
Yeah. There were some... I do like the fact that this is... One of the core messages behind this is it is an immigrant story. That these people and gods of disparate nations have come here, and they have to make changes. They have to adapt to this melting pot idea and how this works out. And so not only, has the country changed, but these people are changed by the journey they take and by their lives they lead when they're here. So these gods are even changing as they exist here and dwell here. So that is a really fascinating part of what's happening here, and we get to see, these human qualities placed on these gods, which it's kind of like the old Greek legends. A lot of times involved gods demonstrating human, emotions or flaws,
like jealousy or anger or whatever.
And so it's fun to see that played out in this modern context.
Another thing that I thought was interesting is the change of location for his first meeting with media.
Good point.
Took place in
a dream
hotel,
state, right?
Or it was in a hotel. He was in a hotel, and so it appeared on the TV in the hotel.
Okay.
Similar to another show.
We'll talk about tomorrow. Okay. Yes. Leftovers.
But the makers of the show kind of felt like we got a lot of scenes in hotels. So they decided to have it, in a place that's already kind of off-putting, which is a large mega store. So having it on all these different TVs, actually. So it wasn't just, initially when he saw it, he's like, what the heck? Yeah. Lucy's talking to me. Unplugged it. But no, she was able to magically replug in all the TVs, and then she appeared over all the TVs. So, and she merely vocally offers to shadow her breasts.
Yes.
As in the book, she shows him. Which, it's kind of like he feeds into his opinion of her. Like, I think I like these older gods better.
Right, but it is... So they did an interpretation of the book.
Yes.
Were faithful to the book while still probably, you're right, making a version of it that I think was better in a visual context. I think it was a good context.
Definitely.
I did mention
right about that
last week, and then I never got back around to it. I said there was a difference between the Coming to America Norseman scene and the book version.
Yes.
So let me just say that real briefly. The difference is, all right. So in the TV show, the Norsemen show up. They get dissatisfied, want to go back home, but can't because the wind's not blowing. So they poke each other's eyes out. They fight, and they finally get enough wind, and then they go home. And they leave the idol there, and Odin's form is here. Well, in the book, they kidnap one of the Native Americans, and as an offering to Odin, they string the guy up as Odin was, hung from the world tree. And so they do like a reenactment, an effigy, basically, of Odin for Odin's sake. Of course, the Native American dies in the process. As retaliation, a huge war tribe of Native Americans comes and kills all the Vikings in their fort. And that's the end. Like, that's it. And then their bodies are there. And then when eventually Vikings come later, the god and sacrifices are all there waiting for them. So it's different. They let them escape.
Yes.
Or they gave them maybe more of a, let's get wind by doing this. Like it was more of a physical manifestation.
And
or something.
The whole, I think you'd mentioned, but worth re-mentioning, that the fact that the totem that they made was left on the shores of America. So the totem was there to symbolize, that blood.
Right. Much like for Anansi, Mr. Nancy, we have this fiery immolation of the ship, and then the wreckage washes ashore, and he's ashore with this kind of blood sacrifice. The other thing that's not in the book that was in the show is the name of the show, the name of the episode, The Secret of Spoons. So that's a song, a folk song that, I don't know if it's an actual folk song.
No, they wrote it for the show.
They wrote it for the show. So it is not in the book. But they have Chernobog singing this folk song about how his wife used to make him the best coffee, and she wouldn't put anything in it. She had a way of stirring with the spoon. And then that knowledge is now lost. The secret of the spoons. And so to me, that means the idea of these old gods, the knowledge, the rituals that are part of the old gods are being lost. And that, we now flavor our coffee and we can do all kinds of cool stuff, but we've lost the old ways.
Yes.
The old ways, which were good ways, and we've brushed them aside.
Before the god of Keurig.
Before the god of Keurig. And low-fat sweetener or whatever. The God of Starbuck. So anyway, that's a pretty good wrap up of episode 2. Yep. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about The Leftovers. We may even try to work in a review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
May try.
But we're sticking with Leftovers and American Gods for sure. So come on back for that. Subscribe if you feel so inclined. Hit the little like button somewhere over there if you feel so inclined as well. And we will see you